Carlos Ponce is the founder and managing partner of Peoplebound. Carlos and his son have created a successful family-owned agency that specializes in producing turnkey business-to-business video podcasts for companies. With a rich background in sales and tech, Carlos took a leap of faith in his mid-50s to start his own business, driven by a desire to build something meaningful that aligned with his passions. We dive into Carlos's journey, the challenges he faced, and the incredible bond formed through this family venture. We'll also explore why podcasts are such an effective marketing tool for B2B businesses and discuss the importance of aligning your work with your personal interests. If you're curious about entrepreneurship, podcast production, or balancing a family business, you won't want to miss this episode. As always, if you found value from this content, please like and subscribe. And now here's my interview with Carlos Ponce. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Beyond Fulfillment Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Goulis, and this week, my guest is the founder and managing partner of Peoplebound, Carlos Ponce. Welcome, Carlos.
Appreciate it. It's good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time.
Sure.
If you could, for everyone, can you tell us what Peoplebound is and how it got started?
Certainly. Peoplebound is a family-owned agency. And when I say family-owned, I'm talking about myself and my son, who are partners. And what we do essentially, in a nutshell, is we produce turnkey, done-for-you live B2B podcasts, like on video, for companies. So we've been doing it for quite a few years now, a couple of years like as a company, and about 9 years I have done it myself for other companies. But so that's what we do. We produce podcasts for companies.
Okay. So you've had a long corporate career in sales, and then, like you said, the podcast production. Where you learned to do all that, you developed an expertise, and then you went out on your own with your own company to do that a couple of years back?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And so what made you decide to make the leap and do it on your own?
Well, it was a combination of a number of things. I mean, I had been with the tech company for a little bit over 12 years. And in tech, or in the tech world, after a decade, it just starts getting to I started to ponder, okay, what's out there for me personally? In terms of building something that based on my personal desires and ideas, right? So I was just about time. It just felt right. It just one of those moments in which I was asking the big questions. You know, what's next for me? How do I want to do things? How do I want to pursue my goals? And it just made sense, right? It was a tough decision because you get to a certain age where starting a new thing on your own, you need to be pretty confident about what you're about to be stepping into. In my case, I was 50 something. I was 56, 55. I was going to be 56. I'm 57 now. So I just took a leap. I mean, I was sort of supported by my son. We talked and we say, why don't we, join efforts? We're two generations with two different mindsets. Let's join them together, build a company. I support on one aspect of the company, and then he supports the other, the younger generation. And we just put it together and decided to go for it, and that's how Peoplebound came about.
Okay. So you hit on a number of things there too. So starting a business, particularly in your mid 50s, can be a little bit, like you said, right? It's challenging if you've been in the corporate world for that long. Yeah. And there's so many people too that are in whether executive positions or maybe other corporate positions where maybe they have a desire to do something else, but they're
they don't quite make the leap. So what obviously there was probably some apprehension there, but what was it like after the fact when you went in, you started building, you got clients, and then you were doing it? What was that feeling
Well, at first it was sort of like jumping into a pool of really cold water, like an ice bath. But then you get used to it, right? And there's a little bit of a learning curve because once you are out there on your own, you see things that you don't normally do when you're employed, right? Because in this case, it's all about you're on your own. I mean, no one's gonna is gonna come and get you and save you, right? So you have to be mindful of that, and that was like one of the hardest lessons that I learned. I think I started the entrepreneurial path later in life. I should probably have started earlier, but I didn't, right? So I have to I was faced with the fact that, hey, you either have to learn how to keep up and upgrade yourself, find a way to do it, or die, right? So dying was not an option, right? So I decided to just do whatever I needed to do in order to upgrade myself in terms of working knowledge and trends and industry insights and so on and so forth. It was not easy. Like I said, it was difficult at first, but I experienced something that was not there when I was fully employed, which is excitement about the unknown, right? There's no paycheck that you can collect every couple of weeks, right? So you need to factor that in, and that was part of the learning curve. And we had our own set of minor and major setbacks at some point. We learning how to overcome those setbacks was also very satisfying. But well, of course, you have to be aware, as I mentioned, that the whole experience was imbued of the family part because he's my son, he's my partner, and he's 24, and we're teaming up. So I guess that if had I been alone, I would probably have quit by now and gone on to something else, or not quit necessarily like abandon everything, but maybe gone a little bit slower at a different pace. But because of the family factor in my case, that helps a lot in keeping the momentum going. And there's something emotional about being an entrepreneur and starting something when you have a family member on board. All right. And there's some degree of responsibility. We have to make this work. And even if it doesn't work for some reason, you never know. Well, the experience bonded us together very, very, very nicely. So that's what I can tell you. Let me know. I tend to be too wordy and ramble on, but let me know.
like?
Out of respect for you and your audience, so please tell me.
So it sounds like the fact that your business partner is your son and a family member, that almost adds an extra level of accountability to where you can't quit on your family, right? Like this has to work.
Right.
Was it saying that right?
Yeah, well, that was the feeling at first. But here's the thing. As a father and as a business person, we have a small business, but it's still a business, right? That's why I'm calling myself a business person. At first, yeah, there's this feeling of, oh, I gotta make this work, and there's this great sense of responsibility and accountability. But with the passing of time, because of the communication that we have every day, and because it's a family thing, it's a team. There's also this we rest on the notion that, like, that feeling of, oh, you know what, dad, you know what, son, let's get to work. But if for some reason maybe we're in the wrong niche, or some other unforeseen factors take place, if it doesn't work, I mean, it's not the end of the world, right? We did it together. We learn together, right? And like I said before, that aspect gives gives a little bit of solace to your soul when you're starting something. And it's not about not being objective, because we have to be objective on what works, what doesn't, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. But again, it's more comfortable because it's imbued of that family ambience, atmosphere. So that was another aspect. So
Okay.
recently, yeah, let me just add something, if I may. Um, we started something. When we started, we were offering two services, because that's where my background was also as a business developer and an SDR, right? And I was in as SDR for a couple of years. So we had this idea of assembling teams of SDRs, remote SDRs, and we did it, right? We did it for a while, and then we had the podcast production thing going on at the same time. It was like a combination of two services. But we learned the hard way that you shouldn't do that. I mean, because it's one or the other, boom, is going to burst, or it's going to fail. And I'm not afraid to accept and recognize that I failed miserably at the SDR team building thing. But I know why, right? And one of the reasons, the most important reasons, is because there was no heart in it. It didn't mean anything. It was circumstantial. It was somebody else's idea that I took on, and then I decided to pursue it, but for the wrong reasons. So it failed miserably. So luckily, we took on a couple of losses here and there, but we decided to sunset the whole offering just to focus on the podcast building service, because that's what I think that I feel comfortable. I think I'm good at it. I built several podcasts in the past. Some of them are going around, are successful, but I enjoy the process of building a podcast. I enjoy communicating. I enjoy the fact that you're talking to people just like you're doing it right now with yours truly. It's an enjoyable process, the human element. That's why I decided to stick to that model and just go with it.
In my world, a personal brand is invaluable. A year ago, Easy DC was brand new with just a couple of customers and no online presence. Then I found Hicks Marketing. They helped me amplify my personal brand, build a solid content strategy, publish my podcast, and 10x the number of customers we serve, all in less than 1 year. Do you need a marketing partner who gets you and cares about your success? Reach out to Alicia at hicksmarketing.com for more info and tell her Dave Goulas sent you.
Okay. So do you think, I mean, learning that lesson the hard way, right? And kind of going through something that maybe you weren't, that wasn't an original idea and was something that you weren't really passionate about and didn't really play to your strengths. Do you think that's why the podcast portion has been so much more successful, because that's something that you just really enjoy and that's a strength of yours, and it's just something that you can wake up and get excited to do every day?
Yeah, it has a lot to do with it. Definitely. It's just like and also there are other moving parts that have to do with the podcast, which is digital distribution, social media, some graphic elements for the branding and the optimizations, all these little things that you have to do in order to make a podcast successful. That's also something that is it's a fun thing to do, right? I'm not saying that it's all milk and honey all the time, but you get a good share of hiccups every now and then. But the fact that you're enjoying the process diminishes the impact that these hiccups have on your emotional well-being. So it's like, oh yeah, well, I screwed up here and there. That's fine. Let's fix it, move on. So it makes it easier, right? As opposed to having to deal with be putting out a bunch of fires out there, and you don't even you're not enthused about the whole thing. It's not the same. So in this case, I like what I'm doing, And also, you probably know this, right? You get to talk to a lot of very interesting people. Some of them personalities. I've been lucky enough to talk with people like, like very interesting people, like the voice of Apple, Siri, for example. These people who are very well known for something. So it's podcast production gives you that opportunity. What else? Yeah, I think that's the most important thing.
Okay, and from your perspective too, why is a podcast such an effective marketing tool for businesses that sell B2B?
Well, how can I tell you this? I mean, I know, but I'm just trying to word my thoughts in a brief manner. I would probably say that when you interview someone, when you have someone on a podcast, and that someone comes from a company that the host or the sponsoring company wants to have a conversation with, I think it's a winner, because where else are you going to have the opportunity to talk with someone for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, and engage in a conversation that it could be considered like, a discovery call, if you will, like, and it's not labeled as such, but it has a vibe to it. You're having a conversation, you're learning about your prospect, you're learning about what keeps them up at night, and you can't do that on a phone call, right? You can't do that on a phone call. So I think that's one of the major things about podcasting, offering a great opportunity to build relationships, meaningful, fruitful, strong relationships. I can tell you that as of today, after 9 years, even today, I talk to people that I met with when I started out doing the podcast thing. So it's a great way to build solid relationships, long-term relationships. And I can tell you more things, but I think those two are the most important.
Okay. And so with your company, Peoplebound, what type of businesses are your ideal customers?
Because of my background and where I come from, because I've been working in tech space for 17 years, I guess, obviously it makes sense for me to talk to companies or to serve companies in that same space, right? Because of something that I know well. So it could be SaaS companies, it could be software outsourcing companies. But the way I see it, it's not limited to that, because I have other interests and additional interests, and I would love to engage with companies in different other verticals. For example, the hospitality and tourism space, right? I'm working on a project to build a podcast for a real estate company that also deals with tourism and hospitality. That's a space I would like to I want to get into, because in podcast production, because that's something that interests me. So in trying to find a niche to serve, I am trying to align that niche to my personal interests. It's like something that I'm personally aligned with. Does it? I always ask my question. Well, in the past, I didn't that much, but now, because of my age and my current phase in life, I try to ask myself this question: does this make sense for me? Does it feel right? It's hard to explain, because it's something that's it's of an innermost nature, right? Something very personal. But I always ask that question: is does this make sense? Okay, does this feel right? And if it does, if the answer is yes, then I want to pursue that. I have a friend, and he's also in the digital marketing space, and one of the things that he tells me is that the way he chooses clients and verticals to work in is like he asks the question, if it's, or he says, if it's not a hell yes, it is a no. So when he said that to me, it resonated because it makes sense, you know. If I want to choose a vertical or a space in which to work, if I'm asking that question myself, and I try to stay away from spaces that just don't feel right, that I don't know that well for some reason. I can give you many examples, but let's say, I don't know, fintech companies or healthcare, you know, I don't know those spaces that well. So I don't think I would do I would do them at disservice if I try to work with them, because it's not something that I know. You know, I have had my fair share of failures when engaging with the wrong clients, because it doesn't work. It's going to crumble down sooner or later. So to make a long story short, I try to engage with clients in spaces that I resonate with, that feel right.
That's an excellent strategy too. Like you said, just asking that question. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Because if it is something that you're aligned with and you have interest in, and you have a experience in where you can truly add value, it just makes it all the more easy to put in the necessary work to do the job correctly. Am I saying that right?
Right. Yeah, excellent. You got it right.
Okay. All right. And so, Carlos, if other businesses want to learn more about your company, the services you offer, and how you can help them put together a podcast, what's the best way people can reach out to you?
Well, they can always go to the website, peoplebound.co. There's no M, it's co, peoplebound.co, or they can email me at cponce, my last name, at peoplebound.co.
Okay.
Or you can hit me up on LinkedIn as well. That's fine. Yeah, they'll find me there too. So on LinkedIn, that's Carlos Ponce right there. And yeah, I encourage anyone who wants to learn more about, you know, my story, or what I'm doing, and just connect. Just feel free to reach out, and we'll make it happen.
Okay. Excellent. And we'll link all that in the show notes for everyone. All right. Well, Carlos, thank you so much for being here and taking the time. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And okay, excellent. And that is all the time we have for now. We will see you next time. Thank you.